I've watched over 500 hours of videos on recording, mixing, and producing. And here's what I learned.
I'm Mark.
I'm Justin.
And we're My Loving Tiger.
We started this band 17 years ago. Now we're back.
To revisit, re-record, and re-release every song we've ever written.
So come and join us.
First, I want to talk about recording. This channel is called the Electrical Audio Channel and is focused primarily on physical mics in the physical world. Here's a look at Steve Albini and his recording studio, Electrical Audio. If you're into music production, you've probably already heard of him, but I want to talk about some of the lessons we can learn from Steve's approach. He's been in the industry for decades and is particularly well known for his work with bands like Nirvana, the Pixies, and the Breeders. Albini's approach is to document the artist's sound with minimal producer interference. His studio, Electrical Audio, was set up in Chicago in 1997. It's got a reputation for capturing performances as authentically as possible. The studio has several rooms, each designed with specific acoustics in mind. Albini's approach made Electrical Audio a popular choice for bands that wanted to keep their sound on process and true to their performance. The one lesson we can learn from watching Albini videos and interviews is about mic placement. I want to tell you about 3 examples that we use in our recording. When we record a kick drum, we will use 2 microphones, one in the front and one on the batter side. In these videos, you can see how Albini mics a kick drum. The most unusual and important detail is using a mic on the pedal or beater side of the kick drum. When we used this technique, we were able to shape the attack of the kick. If you don't have a small lab mic, you can also use other mics in this position with success. More than the type of mic, it's about the placement. This mic is just to record the attack of the kick, so you may want to also gate this microphone. When we record toms, we'll record the top of the tom and the bottom of the tom. And when you do that, it sounds really huge. Albini double mics toms, one mic on the top stick side and one mic on the bottom resonant side. When we use this technique, we got a tom sound with a lot of body and the note of the tom. You will likely need to EQ and gate this second mic. One tip that we found useful is to key the gate off the top mic so they open and close together. Albini uses matching pairs of mics, but like the kick example, we found it's more about the mic placement, not which mics you use. And the third example I want to give is there's an excellent tutorial about recording 2 microphones on a guitar amp. You might be noticing a theme where Albini uses multiple microphones to get a complete and complex sonic image. Using multiple microphones on a guitar amp can be problematic for phase. Fortunately, he created an excellent resource that explains his method for using multiple microphones. A lot of recording resources say, check the phase, which usually means toggle the phase switch and listen for any obvious issues. Albini goes way beyond this and details how to measure phase, what to listen for, and how to adjust mic placement. In his studio, he uses a physical oscilloscope, but you can use a free plugin and get the same result. Now I want to give you an example from the world of mixing. Dan Worrall has an excellent channel where he talks about mixing in the box. He has a wealth of examples and he debunks a lot of the common myths. I want to share with you 3 examples we use in our mixing that we learned from Dan. In this video, Dan explains how to use parallel EQ on each of his drum tracks. Parallel in this case means he has 2 tracks, one unaffected and the other one he applies a bandpass. We use this all the time on our drums and bass to add more solid, low-frequency energy. We've also used it on guitars and keyboards to reinforce the mid-range. We also use saturation on all our channels to help the overtones blend better together. In this video, Dan goes into more detail on which effects are linear and which are non-linear. Linear in this case means he can boost a frequency in one plugin, then cut the same frequency in a second plugin, the result being the 2 plugins will cancel each other out. Not all plugins behave this way and are linear. Plugins that change their character and response depending on level is what he calls non-linear. Dan goes on to demonstrate an application of a non-linear plugin between 2 linear plugins. This video helped us answer a question we've had for a long time. Which plugin should come first, EQ or compression? We always heard it depends or use your ears, but Dan clearly demonstrates the effects of pre-emphasis. And the final example we learned from Dan was something called comp torsion in his video about the Satin plugin. In this video, Dan starts with canceling compression and expansion. He then demonstrates the effect of sandwiching effects like saturation and distortion between compression and expansion. After learning about this from Dan, we fell into quite a rabbit hole researching use cases. It turns out this is the effect that AC/DC used on their guitars. We would love to hear what other people are using this effect combination on, so please let us know in the comments. The third resource I'd like to share is by Michael Beinhorn. His interview with Produce Like a Pro about Hole's Celebrity Skin gave a lot of insights into how he makes a record sound good. Unfortunately, you can't find this interview online. They've taken it down, but I'll tell you a bit about it because it was very valuable. In the video, he talks about how when he recorded the bass and the drums for this record, they were kind of boring. And if you had the interview, you could hear that was true. And so what he did to overcome this was he moved the bass forwards in time. So it's actually rushing the whole time. If you're familiar with the song, there's always this kind of like lurching back and forth feeling that happens. And that's because he pushed the bass forwards in time. And we do that when we feel like a song is dragging a little bit too much. We'll use the bass to push the feeling of that particular section. 2 bonus suggestions. Look at the records that you like. Who recorded them? Where were they recorded? Who worked on these records? That'll give you a great place to start looking for tips of your own. My second suggestion is look outside your scene or genre. You can learn a lot from looking at how other people solve common mixing problems. So see you in the next video when we look at more recording, mixing, and producing resources.